What does the Feast of Tabernacles represent? And how do we apply its lessons into everyday life? Hello, my fellow humans. I'm Katrina. I'm owned by love. Right now, I'm standing in the middle of Germany and the leaves are changing colors. It's time for the fall feast times. And I'm here in the Champagne region of France right now during the fall time when the feasts would take place, the Feast of Tabernacles and the Feast of Trumpets. And these are the grapes that will be used to make more champagne. This feast represents so much that it has a bunch of different names. I decided to break this down into a series and we will explore its names, and we'll start with the first set of names, which all mean the same thing. If you hear the Feast of Tabernacles, the Feast of Booths, or Sukkot, they all mean the same thing. It means a temporary housing or dwelling, like a tent. This represents the Israelites living in temporary dwellings called booths or tabernacles when they were living in the wilderness, going from the land of Egypt to the land of Canaan. You can read about that in Leviticus 23. I'm only going to read a part of it. This first representation of this feast is found in Leviticus 23, verses 34 through 43. I'm only going to read the last two, starting in verse 42. I really encourage all of you to pick up your Bibles with me for this series and read along with me so that you can see as well what I am saying. It says in verse 42, "You are to live in booths for 7 days. All the native born of Israel must live in booths, which we already know are temporary dwellings or tent-like structures, and so that your generations may know that I made the Israelites live in booths when I brought them out of Egypt. I am Jehovah, your God." My question to you is, why would God want the Israelites to remember this every year? For me, I have an everyday lesson for myself that Jehovah will allow me to live in uncomfortable circumstances, because living in tents for me and wandering through a wilderness for 40 years sounds very uncomfortable, with animals and with having to drag my tent everywhere and my children everywhere. Sounds no fun. So if he will do it for them, he will allow me to have a more difficult life too, at times, and he'll bless me along the way. I would love to hear what everyday lessons come up for you in the comments below. This is the first representation. Please join me for the next video, which you can find the links in the description below in order to get there, and I'll see you there for the next representation.